Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston-Annual-Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Hello again, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is sort of going to be, there's no interview, I'm not talking to anybody else, I'm just going to sort of share. You know, annual conference is just around the bend for us, and there are a lot of things going on. If you've not seen our book of reports, you just haven't seen the enormity of all the things that are going to be covered when we gather for annual conference this year. And I just wanted to take a time to share some of my thoughts. Now, they are my thoughts. They are not the thoughts of the annual conference necessarily, or of a district superintendent, or of anybody else. They are just my thoughts. Through the years, I have served the annual conference in various capacities. For 8 years, I was the Conference Council on Finance and Administration statistician. And for those 8 years, it was my job to actually determine how much each church would be assessed, so to speak, in apportionments. We don't do it that way anymore, but back during those years, that was my job. So I'm sort of familiar with CFA. I served for 8 years on the Board of Pensions and Health Benefits, so I'm sort of familiar with pensions and with health benefits. I've served various other capacities. I've been sent to Plano, Texas, to be trained in stewardship with Michael Raves. Perhaps that's why I'm the stewardship chairperson right now of the stewardship team. I've been trained in new church development. I've been trained in how to interpret mission insight. So I've seen the annual conference from a lot of different directions. So this is not just some narrow view that I'm going to be sort of sharing from today. I've seen the conference from the local church all the way up to the committees and things that run the annual conference. And so I hope that you will listen. You may disagree with me. I have no problem with that. You know, feel free to disagree. But I just want us to start thinking about things. And I'm going to start with an easy one, and that's the discipleship team. As the chair of the stewardship team, I am automatically a part of the conference discipleship team. And we've met a couple of times, once last fall and then again this past February. And at the February meeting, we were trying to discuss how can we tell our story, because the discipleship team covers a lot of territory. So rather than just have one long sort of drawn-out session, and I'm hoping this still holds true. I'm pretty sure this is the way we're going to be doing it. The discipleship team is instead going to present a series of shorter videos throughout the annual conference. So our report as the team will be spread out rather than compacted into just one segment. And so I encourage you to pay attention when these shorter, to the point, I hope, kinds of reports make their way to you, rather than going to an hour and a half long session. Look at smaller snippets, so to speak, and see what it is that the teams of our annual conference are doing to help us make disciples for Jesus Christ. Another thing that, of course, comes up at every annual conference is the budget, the report on the Council on Finance and Administration. I don't think it's a secret that we as an annual conference are struggling to meet our budget. You know, we tried apportionments for many, many years. I know how that formula works, and I realized from seeing it from the inside that it didn't work all that well, because not every church paid their apportionment. I had to try to help them understand what those numbers meant, how they were arrived at. And it was a difficult process sometimes to get a church to understand the enormity of how they fit within the bigger cog of the annual conference. If they didn't pay their part, then others suffered. We moved to the tithe system, which I think is a very biblical way of looking at it. You know, the money comes in, 10% of it's given to the annual conference to do the work of the annual conference. Great. But then churches decided, well, let's not report this. We'll say that was a special gift, or we'll say that was designated money. Folks, you can't do that. You can't take and divide the money that comes in into smaller and smaller piles, saying it's designated for this and designated for that, simply because you don't want to give a tenth of it to the annual conference. You've got to do your fair share. You've got to, as a church, step up to the plate and get in the game and support the work of the annual conference. And you do that through your tithe. And for those that are paying their tithe, I give you a round of applause. For those that are struggling, I give you a round of applause. For those of you that might be trying your best to work the system, I do not give you a round of applause. Instead, I say, please join the rest of us that are doing the right thing and supplying the funds that are necessary for our annual conference to do the ministry that the conference needs to do. Let's see, I'm looking at my list. Board of Pensions and Health Benefits. You know, here's the last warning. You've probably heard it before. Clergy and spouses, if you have not had a well-visit physical since last year's annual conference, you need to get one before June 30th. If you don't, come January 1st of 2018, your premiums for insurance are going to go up $75 a month. My calculation says that's $900 more a year that you're going to have to pay simply because you didn't go and get a benefit that is paid for. It doesn't go toward deductible. It's covered. All the benefit is covered. Go and get those physicals. Go and do what you can, because we're not doing those screenings or things anymore at annual conference, but we are doing the physicals that are provided as part of our healthcare benefits that don't cost you anything. Go and get those done the way you should be getting them done. Also, when I was looking at the Board of Pensions and Health Benefits report, especially under the pension side, there is a very well thought out section in the book of reports that would help everyone to understand those various acronyms: UMPIP, the CPP, the CR, whatever they are. There's all these acronyms that we as Methodists like to throw around, and nobody ever seems to know what they are. Well, this section in our book of reports does a great job of spelling those things out and explaining them. And I encourage you to pay attention if you're trying to understand what the pension plan is all about for Methodist preachers. Okay, looking at my list again. This one, I knew we had talked about it at previous annual conferences. And last year, for those that don't know, I had an accident just prior to annual conference and could not attend. But the task force on the bullying and harassment of clergy by laity. It saddens me that we even have to have a task force with that kind of title. It saddens me that the clergy of our annual conference get bullied by lay people. Now, preacher, do you know what you're talking about? Yes, I know what I'm talking about. I have been in churches at board meetings where people looked at me, one person in particular, and said, "Pastor, why don't you just step outside and we can settle this like men?" Now, let me tell you, as a young whippersnapper preacher just starting ministry, that could have been very intimidating, but guess what? I just ignored him. But it was harassment. It was bullying. It went on, and this is back in the late 80s, early 90s that this kind of stuff was going on. And, you hear about it in schools. You hear about it in society. Well, now it seems that even the church has this issue. Folks, we have got to solve this. We have got to deal with it. We've got to bring it out into the open. Read that report. Read the things that they say. Read the recommendations. If you see yourself in that situation as the bully or the harasser, you need to change. If you see yourself being bullied or harassed, you need to talk to somebody about it. That's all I'm going to say about it. Let's see. Conference strategy team. Wow. That's a biggie. I don't even know where to begin on that one. They have been meeting now for quite a while, and they have been looking at their annual conference, and they have been looking at demographics, and they've been looking at all kinds of things related to how we as an annual conference function, how we as an annual conference are seeking to make a difference in our region. And they've come up with suggestions. Now, if I remember correctly the way it was presented in the video, and there is a video that you can go to the conference website and look at. It's about 30 minutes that will explain all this. They've been shown at the district pre-conference briefings. But for those that aren't part of that system, you can go and watch it yourself. You can download the book of reports, too, from the website if you want to. But there are 7 features of this report. Here's the problem. We are going to get so bogged down in just one of those that we're going to ignore the work they've done on the others. And do I need to tell you what it is? We're going to cut districts. Cut my district out, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, you're going to do the same thing that you did before. You're going to continue to be part of a local church that is serving Jesus Christ, that is reaching out into your local community, and you are going to continue to help people come to know Him as Lord and Savior. Okay, there was a little glitch in the system right there, so I've sort of lost my head of steam that I was building up. But when it comes to the idea of district realignments, folks, what's the problem? The work, the focus of the church is not really at the district level. It's not really at the conference level. Those are merely things that help to hold us under a common umbrella. Now, some good ministry does occur at the district level and at the conference level, but by far the vast majority of the ministry that touches the lives of people begins at the local church level. By saying that you're in part of a different district, how's that going to change what church does? I don't think it's going to matter one another. It's just that we don't like change. We don't like to get caught up and do things in a different kind of way. Well, folks, guess what? This is not the 1950s. This is not the way that our grandparents did ministry. The world in which we are living is changing. The demographics of our communities are changing. The demographics of the states in which we live are changing. Communication is changing. The way that we get back and forth to places is changing. The only thing that's not changing is the church. Oh, we're changing. Let me take that back. We are declining. We have gone down in membership, I think. We may have gone up 1 year in there. But let me say, as a whole, the trend has definitely been in terms of membership decline since we became the United Methodist Church in 1968. There may be a few aberrations there, but we are nowhere near where we were. And there's no way that we're going to get back there if we continue to do church and look at church the way that we did it in the 1950s and the 1960s. We are going to have to approach the way we do ministry in a way that makes sense for the age in which we live and to be adaptable enough that we can change as time goes by rather than waiting 50 or 60 years to say, we should have done something back in 2020, and now it's 2080. So you're going to have your own opinion on that. But my opinion is we don't depend upon the districts or the annual conference in the local church to do ministry. I don't call my district superintendent and say, do I have permission to do this? I don't call the annual conference and say, I'd really like to do this. Would that be okay with you all? No, if I see the need, if my church feels the necessity to reach out in the name of Jesus Christ, we do it. Because that's why we're here. That's what we are called to do. Okay, I'm preaching now. I'm preaching. Let's back it off. One more thing and I'm out of here. The Board of Ordained Ministry, that's another one of those things that I'd never served on. I've been in the ministry getting ready to start 34 years. I got a letter from the bishop last fall. Terry, we'd like you to serve on the Board of Ordained Ministry. Bishop asked, what you going to say? I said, okay, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? I'm learning about, you talk about acronyms. There's a whole nother set of language to learn when you serve on the Board of Ordained Ministry. But one of the things that's going to be maybe the most confusing, and I'm still sorting it all out in my mind, is that at this annual conference, we are not ordaining anyone. That's right. No one will be ordained. Now, that doesn't mean that we have suddenly run out of people to ordain, but it reflects upon the fact that there is a process that we used to say persons had to go through this process for 2 years, but we changed that to say now they must go through it 3 years before they can be ordained. And this just happens to be the year that catches the people in that gap. Had we not switched to the 3-year plan, we would be ordaining people this year. But because we switched to the 3-year plan, now there's going to be a year in which there is no one sort of in the pipeline, so to speak, to be ordained. That does not mean, however, that we are not going to recognize some other folks. Those that are coming into associate membership and those that are going to be provisional elders. And although I've not seen the liturgy myself, and it is in the book of worship, I'm sure, and our worship book for annual conference, I just haven't got that far yet. I'm told it is a service that is going to pull not only those on stage into it, but those of us that will be in the audience into it, to make us realize the importance that we have as ministers of the gospel. And so I'm looking forward to that as well, a very special worship service. They're calling it a commissioning service, I believe, to end annual conference on that Wednesday morning. Well, I've gone on long enough. If you're going to annual conference, make sure you read through your book of reports, look at those reports, be prepared to offer amendments, be prepared to offer discussion. Let's do it in a civil manner, folks. Let's not get angry with one another. I can see the possibility for tensions rising. Let's go in with a spirit of prayer and humbleness, believing that God will be with us and that we will be doing the things we need to do. So God bless, and I hope to see you at annual conference. This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.